The round one chase for the Stanley Cup continues, and the breakdowns on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast also push forward. We're taking a look at everything you need to know from around the world of the NHL. Jets toast, Canes cruise past the Isles, the Preds respond, and we ain't even getting to the Leafs-Bruins just yet. Thank you for joining us. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hockey heads, fantasy fanatics, and daily degenerate gamblers, you're tapped right back into your daily source for all of the news and info that you need. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast. With Steele and Flip, shout out to the everydayers holding us down, making us your first listen every single day. We see and appreciate you. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. Game off. We got to talk more about Monopoly Go, the fast-paced game that lets you team up with friends, tournaments, unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis taunting your friends. Download Monopoly Go for free on the Google Play or the App Store. Game on, Steele. I don't even know if we need to continue because Monopoly Go sounds so fire that we could probably just sit here and talk about that all day, but we're not going to do that, are we? Because there are much more important things to talk about. And look, fantasy-wise, you and I are going to keep trying to bring this back in, but when you're watching the hockey that's going on right now, there are fantasy takes to be had. Take a look at what's going on with Connor Hellebuyck. Is he going to be pooched next season? I don't think so. But we're going to talk about it because his Jets just got bounced and he had an .870 save percentage in the first round. That needs to be discussed. The Canes cruise right past the Isles. We saw that one come in, but we'll talk about it very briefly. Preds, they respond. I don't know about you, Steele, but I'm kind of tired about hearing about Vancouver underperforming. And let's give this Predators team the flowers it deserves. You and I will talk about that as well. And of course, whether people out there like to hear it from us or not, the Toronto Maple Leafs responded. I haven't spoke to you about what your take was on Game 5 or what you think about for Game 6. We're going to pooch bets tonight and focus on the meat and potatoes. So over to you, brother, as always. The Jets, I had them in 7. That was wrong. You had them at least getting dusted by Colorado. You were correct. Over to you because, look, this Colorado team has a cup in the past few years, and they're looking like a force to be reckoned with out west.
I think that's what people are forgetting a lot, too, is just 2 years ago, the Colorado Avalanche were the Stanley Cup champions. And I know they haven't been they haven't had their captain, Gabriel Landeskog, for the last 2 years since they've won the championship. But they are still one of the biggest threats, if not the biggest threat now coming out of the Western Conference. They dust aside the Winnipeg Jets in 5. Valeri Nichushkin, 7.7 goals. Cale Makar, 9 points. Nathan McKinnon, 9 points. Mikko Rantanen, 9 points. This is exactly, I did say it was going 7 games, but this is exactly what I saw from this Colorado Avalanche team. And apparently Ryan Whitney's anonymous source from the Western Conference was right. The Winnipeg Jets are frauds when it comes to the postseason. They are a great regular season team, but they cannot get it done in the playoffs. They cannot score on a consistent basis in the playoffs. And they've shown us that over the last 4, 5, even 6 years that they've been in the postseason. And as
the blue line has overachieved as well, Steele.
The blue line has overachieved. And as much as I love Connor Hellebuyck, and I'm still going to stand behind him and say that he is the best fantasy hockey goaltender in the regular season,
I agree.
He has not performed the last 2 seasons in the playoffs as well. And I know you said, the .870 save percentage. How about the 5.23 goals against average? And I threw this stat, or I think maybe you said this to me, but Connor Hellebuyck allowed, 20 goals allowed in 5 games, 24 gols allowed in 5 games.
Yeah.
And he allowed the most goals in the first round so far, and he also faced the most amount of shots on net. So we knew that he was going to see a lot of puck, a lot of rubber against this Colorado Avalanche team. The one thing I want to highlight about this Avalanche team heading into the second round, and what I saw mostly from this first round series is they really engage their defensemen and to join the rush. They break in flawlessly with their their forward line, but then their defensemen come in at the perfect time over the blue line. They find the seam across the ice, and then they wire it on net for a deflection or it goes in. They have been super flawless with activating their defensemen into the rush and trailing into areas where they will be open to receive a puck and then set up another pass or put the puck on net. I've seen it with all of their defensemen so far in the first round. They've done it flawlessly, and that was a huge, along with the top power play unit that they have, that was a huge benefit and a huge pro that I saw was activating their defensemen on the rush.
That is why you smash a subscribe button and you drop us a 5-star review right there. My man Steele breaking that down flawlessly. And look, the Winnipeg Jets blue line, I had to just mention it. They were getting a lot of credit coming into this series. And I think you and I have kind of done a good job of taking a look at teams that have overachieved or punched above their weight class. We've highlighted it with teams like the Philadelphia Flyers and other situations. When it comes to the blue line love that the Winnipeg Jets were getting, I understand it because the numbers in the regular season backed it up. But when you look at the Neil Pionks, the Nate Schmitz, even the Josh Morrisseys of the world, who fantasy-wise, Josh Morrissey, you can't take away from him. But when it comes down to the point you made about fraudulency in the offseason or in the postseason, Steele, I think that blue line in Winnipeg was gassed up far too much. And are they going up against arguably the most dangerous offensive team in the NHL? Yes, they are. So I'm not here to poo. Look, you and I don't poo-poo on things. We just got to highlight the obvious, and that's number one. That blue line was not good enough. And when you have your number one goaltender doing what he was doing, you're not going to win any games. They were lucky to get one. And let me finish my point with this. Nathan MacKinnon has the best motor in the NHL, and I just mean when at the end of the shift you think he's done, he still can skate end to end and be faster than the best defenseman on the next team who has just had a minute and a half to suck wind. So I needed to just give some love to Nathan MacKinnon because also, Steele, when you have Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar, that combination of forward and blue line offensive and defensive depth, because both of those guys don't play a one-sided game. Cale Makar is the best defenseman in the NHL. So let's get that clear and out of the way. Quinn Hughes might win the Norris Trophy this year. We know that's a very tough award to kind of peg in terms of who's the best. Cale Makar is the best. And when you have Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar going, Steele, Alexander Georgiev can kind of just stand there and be average. So shout out to the Colorado Avalanche. Shout out to those two good teams. You and I have a lot more to talk about. We're rambling now. Canes Isle. Point. We'll get to the break. Vancouver, Nashville, and of course, Toronto, Boston. Just had to give that love because now this Colorado Avalanche team, regardless of what you want to say about Georgiev, who wants to take these guys on? How about the Canes, though? Because, look, I said something about Patrick Waugh and Varlamov, and maybe that was a mistake. I also alluded to off air. His puck handling skills as a quote-unquote number one goaltender are very poor, and that actually cost them in that game the other night. They gave them a bit of a run. The Carolina Hurricanes are for real, and now you have the New York Rangers, Carolina Hurricanes, and Florida Panthers already through, Steele. Those are the three best teams in the Eastern Conference, and they just proved it. No disrespect to the Islanders, but the Canes' depth and my boy Seth Jarvis just flex their muscle.
And we're going to talk a lot more about that. And I don't want to delve too deep into the New York Islanders because I was flat out wrong about them. We're going to speak mostly on the Carolina Hurricanes and what's going into that with that matchup in the second round with the New York Rangers. And again, just kind of evaluate the first round from what we've saw. But we're going to do that after the break. We're going to touch on the Boston Bruins Maple Leaf series. We're going to touch on the Preds Canucks series after the break and wrap up this episode with a nice bow.
Yes, sir. But we got to pause right here to talk a little bit about Monopoly Go. And I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You've heard about it. But there is just too much good stuff going on in our favorite mobile game. You can team up with friends for time tournaments. You work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win, the more awesome prizes you unlock. That's Monopoly Go. Plus, Monopoly Go feels like brand new, exciting every single day, constantly changing tournaments and challenges a ton that include unique mini games like digging for treasure. Steel, who doesn't like digging for treasure with a robot pachinko machine? And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win on Rent Frenzies. There's also something fun to discover in Monopoly Go every single day. Get off the bench. Go download it now for free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Are you still watching on Fox Sports or ESPN, though? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting. Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, news, opinion, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channel app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. We're going to get to the Bruins Leafs series. We're going to get to the Preds Canucks series. Before we touch on the Isles and Hurricane series, just my last point about the Avalanche Jets series. Again, with the top power play, with the defensemen activating so often. The other great thing that I saw in the first round was they got production from all of their players. Depth scoring was a huge factor in this series. Andrew Cogliano, Zach Parise, Casey Middlestat with 6 points in this series. What a great pickup with the Casey Middlestat for Bo and Byram for them. You know, great trade that we said for both teams. So great things all around for the Avalanche. They're going to wait. They're going to be waiting for that next series between, I believe, the Dallas Stars and Vegas Golden Knights. But let's get over to the Carolina Hurricanes and the New York Islanders. Like I said, I'm not going to touch on the New York Islanders that much because I've already sort of mentioned it. There needs to be a lot done in this offseason to free up some cap space, get some younger players, and just get some speed throughout their forward group right now. So not going to touch on that. That was a complete misfire on my part, picking them in 7. So I've already said it before, but with this Carolina Hurricanes team, I want to give some credit to both of us for our X factors. You specifically with your boy Seth Jarvis leading the team with 7 points in the series, a +5, a 27% shooting percentage for the kid, and also a 54% win rate in the faceoff circle. Seth Jarvis was by far the best player in the Carolina Hurricanes first round series. And then right behind him was my X factor, Brady Shea, with 5 assists. He was absolutely
great call on that one, Steele.
So we got to give ourselves a little pat on the back over here for those X factors in this series. I have a couple of takes here, but I definitely want to hear what you have to say about this Hurricanes roster as well as just the guys performing for the Hurricanes.
Number one, Steele, when they brought in Jake Gensel, obviously there was a lot to like. You know, and they bring in Evgeny Kuznetsov, obviously a bit riskier. I don't know if there's been 2 deadline ads that have it looks like Evgeny Kuznetsov and Jake Gensel have been wearing Carolina Hurricanes colors for 4 years. That's what it looks like. And it doesn't even matter if they're fitting in that well and producing the way they are. Jake Gensel is the 4th favorite for the Conn Smythe right now on FanDuel, by the way. Not like that really is the be-all and end-all of anything, but it's intriguing. And what also is intriguing, Steele, is when you have this Carolina Hurricanes team with the back end that they have, Freddie Anderson, healthy and rested. That's one of those things that, of course, you want guys in there playing. Blood clotting issues is never a thing you want to hope for, ever. But my man has all the gas in the tank in the world. All these other goaltenders, Steele, that are looking gassed, Freddie is ready to go. And I know that's not one of those things that we're going to sit here and talk about all night long, but it's one of those things, man, that we can't deny when it comes to springtime hockey and all these goaltenders who have been seeing all these. Look, we saw it with Jake Ottinger the other year. We saw it with Connor Hellebuyck back-to-back years. Being a goaltender in the NHL and facing all of those rubber and playing all those games, it adds up. So I need to give some love to Freddie, Seth Jarvis, shout out to them. The Canes' depth is now one of those weaknesses before, and it's a strength. Rod Brind'Amour, though, let's go there for a second.
Yeah.
You sent me one of those. I love Rod Brind'Amour. Is
Yeah.
this going to be a distraction for this team? I don't know where this is coming from, Steele, because there's like rumors out there that like he won't resign. Maybe Carolina lowballed him. Do you think that's going to be a distraction? Because either way you slice it, this Carolina team is very much for real.
Yeah, I think it's just a weird moment to bring up at this point after
Yes.
winning this series. And I just want to read the quote from Darren Dreger, which he posted
you.
on Twitter. Rod Brind'Amour's future as Carolina's coach is up in the air. Recently, a deal seemed close, but it's believed the offer to extend the
Bizarre.
highly respected coach has been pulled. Sources say Brind'Amour wants to stay, but may have to test the market if an agreement can't be reached. I find it very odd that it comes out that way right after they win the first round series against the New York Islanders. So that's very strange. And I don't see why they would not want to bring back Brind'Amour. And I understand there's been some question marks with him after, being considered one of the heavy favorites in the postseason for, the last couple of seasons and not really producing that much. So I get there were some question marks, but he's been a fantastic coach. He's been a part of this franchise for a long time. So I just find it weird. I find the timing very strange and weird for that to be coming out right now, right after the first round series. I do have a couple of more takes, if you don't mind, just unless you have something to say on that.
All I got to say is it doesn't make any sense. The man brought them a Stanley Cup. Also, their shortcomings in the postseason, to me, had nothing to do with Rod Brind'Amour. Ask anybody in the NHL. Rod Brind'Amour is not only one of those respected just characters around the game, he has earned his respect behind the bench. So hit me with your next two takes or wherever you want to go, because that's confusing. However, Rangers-Canes, that's going to be an absolute battle. I can't wait to talk about that with you. Steele and I are going to break down every single round 2 matchup, East-West. Again, X factors, best bets, predictions, who wins and in how many games. Make sure you're tapped into the pod every single day, Monday through Friday, until that cup is hoisted. However, Steele, you got more takes. We haven't even gotten to Vancouver, Nashville. And we got things to say about Toronto, Boston. No bets for today. However, if you guys ever want betting advice, you want anything advice for your fantasy teams, Steele and I's DMs are always open. You can hit us up anytime.
And we'll keep that Preds Canucks series a little bit shorter, maybe even the Leafs-Bruins series as well. But my final point before we get to break and get to those two series is, no disrespect, because the Carolina Hurricanes played a great first round series, but the New York Rangers, and again, like you said, we're going to break it all down once round 2 is fully solidified. But the New York Rangers,
too heated now, Steele.
The New York Rangers are a different beast than the New York Islanders. Igor Shesterkin is a different beast. The blue line is a different beast.
The Carolina Hurricanes are a different beast than the Washington Capitals for the Rangers as well.
100%. 100%. Not taking anything away from them. But the New York Rangers, again, a 38% on the power play. And the New York Islanders actually had a decent power play percentage as well. They had 27% on the power play, but
it's not the same animal. Not the same beast.
It's not the same animal. It's not the same beast. I just had to throw that out there. Just to your point as well, the Washington Capitals are not the same beast as the Carolina Hurricanes. That is going to be by far probably the most second round series that I want to watch out of all of them. And we don't even know who's playing who right now besides that one. So we're going to move forward, though, with the Canucks Preds series and the Bruins Leafs series. We're going to get there very, very shortly, right after the break. But first, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every single game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150. Win or lose, bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, money lines, puck lines, whatever you want, all on the app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for, fans out there? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe, the follow button, leave a 5-star review We appreciate all that love and support you show us in the comments,
Yes,
on
sir.
Twitter, on the YouTube channel, on your favorite audio platform or your podcast platform. So thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode and consistently tuning in for all of our episodes throughout the playoff season right now. Thank you so much. Let's get over to the Preds Canucks series before we touch on the Bruins Leafs. We'll keep this one pretty short. All I really have to say is, even though UC Saros' save percentage isn't the best, he has an 880 save percentage, I believe, but a 2.13 goals against average, somewhere around there. UC Saros, again, right there with Connor Hellebuyck, and even what I'm just seeing from him right now, he is such a great goaltender. He, to me, gets... I mean, there's a lot of great goaltending right now. Jeremy Swayman, UC Saros. There's a lot of...
When you say along with Hellebuyck, you mean in terms of fantasy, because Hellebuyck's look doo-doo this playoff.
Fantasy. Fantasy.
UC
Saros, again, along with what his save percentage and his stats say right now in the postseason, because I think, I just had it up, but I believe UC Saros has an 880 save percentage. And that's just because that one game where Vancouver Canucks only had 12 shots on net and they still won that game. Besides that, he's been unbelievable. And he won them that game in game 5. He made some head-scratching saves. And he was just from post to post, splits. I mean, they would not have won that game without him. He played absolutely spectacular. That's really all I have to say about the Nashville Predators. I know you want to touch on them a little bit, but I think UC Saros has been by far the best player for the Predators this first round.
It might sound like an obvious thing to say, Steele, when it comes to the playoffs. Your best players need to be the best players, but take a look at this series. Where is Elias Pettersson? He has been missing in action. And then you take a look at the Nashville Predators, Josi, Forsberg, and Saros getting it done. And look, the Vancouver Canucks are straight up lucky to have this series still in their favor.
Yeah.
That's not taking away from what they've done. This is just taking a look at, and I think I alluded to this right off the top. It's time to stop saying that the Vancouver Canucks have underperformed and start giving credit to this Nashville Predators team. One who is still very hard to play against. We said this in our previews. Pesky. The word, the adjective, the description, whatever you want to call it, holds true for this Nashville Predators team. One who has ratcheted up the physical intensity when you need to. When a guy gets hit 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 times going to play the puck in their own end, this forecheck from the Nashville Predators has been relentless. And these guys are human beings. Yeah, they're professional athletes. But if you get your bell rung 2, 3, and 4 times, Steele, you know what it's like going back there to play that puck and a big lad's coming in there to run you. You're going to have a couple of double takes and you might not be playing as solid as you will. Is that the be all and end all of this series? No, it's not. But they have been punishing physically. They've been getting big performances from the big players. And if it wasn't for, I don't know, who was it, Sherwood or one of those guys hitting that inside of the post, Colton Sissons, I think it was.
Yeah, Colton Sissons.
And Brock Besser, like literally those two things, this series looks very, very different. I'm not going to go down that well. I just needed to come on here. I got not many notes. Nashville punishing physically. They're getting all that they need from Saros, Josi, and Forsberg. And someone on the Vancouver Canucks is going to need to respond because, again, paging Elias Pettersson, I don't know where Mans is at.
He has not been around for this series. It's been very eye-opening to see a lot of these stars that we really like to watch in the regular season are just not performing right now in the first round series. So hopefully he's there. His head's back on straight in game 6 for the Vancouver Canucks. But again, we both have the Preds in 7. I hope it goes 7 and it's going back to Nashville for game 6. Let's go back to the Boston Bruins and Maple Leafs series as that game goes back to Toronto for game 6. I've got 2 things I really want to say from what I saw in game 5. Number 1, the Leafs really have to be aggressive on taking lanes when they're given to them. Max Domi on that 2-on-1, instead of passing the puck, I feel like this guy doesn't have a lot of confidence in his shot because he decides to pass the puck way too much. And I'm all for making the great pass or making a good pass when needed. But if they're giving you that lane, along with Mitch Marner, there was a play earlier where they gave him a lane and he decided to go loop around to avoid a physical area or a physical
and Jeremy
play.
Swayman can see this, though, Steele. You can see it. He's not
Yeah.
even playing shot.
He
He's playing
knows
pass.
exactly where they're going. So number one, they need to be a lot more aggressive with
100%.
taking those lanes that are given to them.
100%.
Number two, I absolutely love what I'm seeing from Matthew Knies. And I'm not just talking about the overtime winner, which was incredible in itself, but the physicality that a 21-year-old is bringing against a Boston Bruins team. 21 hits in 5 games. I'm loving what I'm seeing from this 21-year-old. I love the fact that he's going after the best player from the Boston Bruins and David Pastrnak, asking him to go me, and then just absolutely chirps him away. So I love what I'm seeing from this 21-year-old Matthew Knies, who, again, he's not even getting that much playing time, only 13 minutes.
Look, agreed. Matty Knies, he actually looked like he was fitting in last postseason. So the fact that he is fitting in now doesn't surprise me. And look, thank you for leaving the 2 obvious things for me. Number one, that Toronto power play is a joke.
Sucks.
Guy Boucher and whoever his staff is running that power play, can somebody do something? I don't know if they need to be bag skated. I know they just won, so maybe that's like a very aggressive thing. I don't know if they need to go out for a team bonding. I don't know.
I told you, Guy Boucher's a double agent. He's from the Senators organization,
double
man.
Agent.
He's a double
Thanks
agent.
a lot, Ross. Anyway, Joseph Wall, number 2. Look, I traded for Joseph Wall in my fantasy keeper dynasty league. You know how I feel about this goaltender, and I think what you just saw from him in Game 5 is all I need to say. This Toronto team hasn't had a goaltender, Steele, that has been able to come up with the big save. He was the difference there at the end of the game. No hate on Ilya Samsonov. He is not that guy. And unfortunately, Joseph Wall got hurt. There was obvious things that you can't predict. Joseph Wall's steadying presence, Steele, his demeanor, his calmness, that is the goaltender that the Toronto Maple Leafs need. I don't even care what happens. He is the guy that plays whatever amount of games this team has left in the postseason. It might just be 1. Joseph Wall is the goaltender of the future, and I know that's just 1 game. But when you see his approach, he's cerebral out there, Steele. And he answered the bell when they needed it the most. This team hasn't had a goaltender to be able to make that big save since Ed Belfour. There has been no one there making, and there's no disrespect to Freddie, who I really, really like, and I think he got hung out to dry as a Toronto Maple Leaf. There has not been a goaltender that has been able to make the big save. Joseph Wall did just that. He's the guy, and he is the guy of the future. Again, I'm not getting overly hyped, but when you put up that performance in Boston in an elimination game, you're going to get some love on this show. And if you're a fantasy hockey GM and you're still listening to the end of this episode, and Joseph Wall is an opportunity for you out there to add right now, and you're in a keeper dynasty, go out there and get him, because Steele, he's going to be getting 45, 55 games next year in a Toronto Maple Leafs uniform minimum.
And that seems to be the word going around the Leafs roster and organization right now, is they love the calm, the cool, collected, vibe that he brings off right now. So absolutely love it. He came and turned up for Game 5, just like the rest of the boys in that 2-1 overtime win.
We're turning up tonight in the 6, baby.
Yes, we are. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Once again, go check out Locked On Sports Today's YouTube channel. You can also find it on the free Amazon Fire TV channel app. They are here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering every single league. So once again, thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with your bets tonight, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.